All right, this is your review for your last quiz in American government, and we're excited about that. I wish I could say that this is going to be an easy quiz, but if you don't study, you probably aren't going to do well in this quiz. And so I put this video together, so this might help you with that idea. This quiz deals with the judicial branch of the government, and it also deals with the amendments section, the last two sections that we've covered. And so anyway, you do need to know about the Judiciary Act of 1789. You want to know that that act established the positions of Chief Justice and 5 Associate Justices for the Supreme Court. You also want to know about the different types of courts that are found in the country. We have constitutional courts, and you want to know that those they have judges that are appointed by the president, and they serve for life. And then there's legislative courts, and these are courts that they have judges that are appointed by the president, but they serve between 10 and 15 years. And they're courts that deal with specific cases that rise from powers granted by Congress. All right, and so two different kinds of courts: constitutional courts and legislative courts, and you want to know about the judges involved with there. Obviously, you want to know that judges are the chief decision makers of the federal judiciary. You want to know that justices are the name of judges for the Supreme Court. You also want to know about the American Bar Association, and that is the group that the president oftentimes will ask their opinion about before he picks a judge to maybe for the Supreme Court or for federal court. You also want to know the idea of senatorial courtesy, and that is the idea that if there are senators from a state in which a judge comes from, and those senators are part of the same party as the president, if they don't approve of the nominee, then usually the Senate will not confirm the presidential's appointment. You want to know, of course, the different terms in the judicial process: the plaintiff, the person who's suing; the defendant, the person who is being sued. You also know that a civil case is the kind of case in which a person is trying to recover something of value, generally money, and that's a civil case. Whereas a criminal case is where somebody has violated the law and the U.S. government is actually prosecuting them. And so you want to know that. You want to know that the U.S. district courts are the most active of the federal courts. All right. You want to know the jury terms. There is what's called a grand jury. That's a group of people that meet together and look over the evidence in a case to determine whether there's enough evidence to even have a case. Then there is a trial jury, and that is the type of jury that you oftentimes see maybe on the television programs or whatever that actually are part of the trial, and they determine whether somebody is guilty or not. You want to know the terms verdict, which is the decision of a jury; a hung jury, which is a jury that can't agree on a verdict. You also want to know the exclusionary rule, and that's the rule that basically says that if evidence is obtained illegally, it's not admissible in court. You want to know as well the appeals court, and that would be a higher court that reviews the case records and the verdicts of lower courts. Of course, appeals courts don't actually retry the case. All they do is look at the documents and make sure that the law was properly applied to that. This is a big one. The D.C. Court of Appeals is one of the most powerful courts in the country. And you want to know because it regulates the regulators, all right? And so the D.C. federal courts are the most active, but the D.C. Court of Appeals is the one that regulates the regulators. And so don't get those two mixed up. You want to know the idea of stare decisis, and that is the idea of precedent. Judges will oftentimes look at past precedent in cases to determine, and they usually try to stay with past precedent unless for some reason they feel the past precedent was wrong. Of course, you want to know the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land. Hopefully you know that. And you want to know that the Supreme Court has both original and appellate jurisdiction. The Supreme Court, of course, has jurisdiction over everything. You want to know the idea of judicial review, which is the right of the court to declare a law or an action unconstitutional. And you'll want to know the court case involved in that, and that is Marbury versus Madison, and that was the court case that established judicial review. All right, writ of cert is a petition to hear a court a case in the Supreme Court. You want to know it's the Solicitor General, that is the lawyer for the U.S. government when they go to the Supreme Court. Don't get him confused with the Attorney General, which is the U.S. lawyer for the president, but the Solicitor General is the one that actually does the trial there in the Supreme Court. You want to know about the different types of opinions. Of course, there's unanimous opinions. All the justices agree. Majority opinions, where there's a split, but most people agree with. Concurring opinions. This is the kind of the different one, where somebody agrees with the majority, but for a different reason. You also want to know that the different justices in the Supreme Court have a tradition, which they call the conference handshake. And that is basically saying that even though they might disagree, they still have a purpose. They have a harmony of purpose. And so it's a very nice little thing. You want to know different judicial philosophies, the idea of judicial restraint, which means that a judge applies the law based on what the founders intended it to say. They kind of stay within the four corners of the Constitution. And then there's the idea of judicial activism, which is the philosophy that judges go beyond what the Constitution says and say what they think the law should be. How dare somebody interrupt our review of you? All right, as far as the amendments, as I promised, there is going to be just one page that has basically different things that the amendments cover, and you have to put the number of the amendment that covers that. All right, so that is going to be a difficult thing. Obviously, real easy ones like the First, Second Amendment are pretty easy, but some of the other ones might get a little tricky. And so definitely know the different numbers involved and what those amendments are. There are 27 of them. I'm not saying that all 27 are on there, but it's a full page. And so you'll definitely want to look over most of the amendments. Definitely, if it's an important amendment, I'm sure it's on there. And so make sure you study really hard for that. All right, I think that is a good review there for this. And so I hope you'll study really hard for that. Thank you.